My name is Ethan. I'm 31 years old, and I've just realized that for the past 10 years, I've been nothing more than a walking ATM for my family. I guess I should start at the beginning. I was always the responsible child in my family. Unlike my younger brother Kevin, who changed colleges like he changed his socks and failed at everything he tried, I graduated with honors, landed a prestigious job at a financial company, and by the age of 31, I had worked my way up to senior financial analyst. Nothing supernatural. I was just always hardworking, planned ahead, and didn't waste money. My parents always admired Kevin more. He was the creative soul, the free spirit, and was constantly searching for himself. This meant that at 28, he was still jumping from one low-paying job to another, constantly asking for money, and had no stability. But he was fun, outgoing, and the life of the party. The complete opposite of me, the boring accountant, as my father often joked. I had long since come to terms with these jokes. After all, they turned to me when Kevin needed money again for his next incredible opportunity, or when their car broke down, or when they needed to pay for unexpected home repairs. I never refused. Family is family, right? What they didn't know was that I wasn't just lending them money occasionally. For the past 5 years, I had been covering about 40% of their rent every month, even though they thought their apartment had gotten cheaper because of a special program for senior citizens. I paid off Kevin's $3,000 credit card, which he used for his unpredictable expenses, thinking it was some kind of bank bonus from my company. I paid for my parents' health insurance through my corporate program, even though they thought it was some kind of government benefit. Why did I never tell them the truth? Probably because I was afraid of changing the dynamic of our relationship. I was afraid they would treat me like a cash cow instead of their son. The irony is that this is exactly what happened, but I didn't notice it until recently. When my father started talking about his dream of visiting Japan a couple of years ago, I decided it would be the perfect gift for his 60th birthday. He had always been interested in Japanese culture, watching documentaries about ancient temples, samurai, and sushi. I began planning meticulously. I saved up more money, researched the best routes, and read tourist reviews. It was supposed to be the trip of his dreams. I booked everything for 4 people, my parents, Kevin, and me. Round-trip business class flights. My father always complained about his back. 2 weeks in cozy traditional ryokans and modern hotels, private tours with English-speaking guides, tickets for the Shinkansen bullet train, dinners at Michelin-starred restaurants, including the famous Sukiyabashi Jiro, all for just over $15,500. When I announced my gift at a family dinner, everyone was thrilled. My mom teared up, my dad hugged me for the first time in years, and even Kevin said I wasn't so boring after all. It was one of the happiest moments of my adult life. I felt like I had finally found a way to combine my financial resources with something that was truly important to my family. In the months that followed, I sent them e-brochures about the places we would visit, created a group chat where I shared interesting facts about Japan, and even started learning a few basic Japanese phrases. At first, they responded enthusiastically, but gradually their interest waned. Messages went unanswered, and suggestions to discuss plans were put off. "We're really busy right now, Ethan. Let's do it another time, son. Don't be such a nerd, we just want to relax on the trip." About a month before the trip, Kevin announced that he wanted to bring his new girlfriend, Amber. They had only been dating for 3 months, but according to him, it was true love. I politely explained that all the reservations were for 4 people and that adding a 5th person would be difficult and expensive. Kevin was disappointed, but seemed to understand. Then, 2 weeks before the trip, it happened. I was at work analyzing quarterly reports when I received a casual message from my mother. "Hi, dear. We've decided that Amber will go instead of you. She's so fun and knows so much about Japanese fashion. You understand, right? You're always so busy with work, and you can go another time. Love you, Mom." I reread the message 10 times, not believing my eyes. My heart was beating so hard that I could literally hear it in my ears. They decided? They just decided that I wasn't going on the trip that I had organized and paid for myself? And they didn't even call to tell me. They sent me a text message as if it were no big deal? I wanted to call and yell at them. I wanted to write an angry reply. I wanted to tell them how much they had hurt me. But instead, I just replied, "Got it." Then I put my phone down and went back to work, mechanically entering numbers into spreadsheets. Outwardly, I was calm. Colleagues passing by wouldn't have noticed anything unusual. But inside, something broke. Something important, and it seemed irreparable. During my lunch break, I went to the bathroom, locked myself in a stall, and sat there for 20 minutes, trying to pick up the pieces. I didn't cry. For some reason, there were no tears. There was only the deafening realization that, to them, I had never really been part of the family. I was a convenient ATM, a boring older son whose feelings weren't even worth a phone call. That evening, I didn't go home. Instead, I had dinner at a quiet bar near the office and opened my laptop. The first thing I did was check all the booking details. Since I had paid for everything with my credit card and provided my email address, I had all the information. And then I realized I had an unexpected trump card in my hands. All the tickets, hotel reservations, transfers, everything was in my name, with my contact details. They couldn't even change the passenger's name without my involvement. And in most cases, 2 weeks before the trip, that would have been impossible to do without significant penalties. Suddenly, it dawned on me. They didn't just cut me out of the trip, they cut me out of the family. And they did it slowly over the years, but I didn't want to see it. Now I saw the whole truth, and it was ugly. At that moment, I made a decision. I wasn't going to make a scene. I wasn't going to yell and demand explanations. I would simply do what they never expected from predictable, boring Ethan. I would respond in a manner they deserved. I opened the airline's website and found our reservations. "Are you sure you want to cancel all tickets?" the website asked. "Yes," I clicked, feeling strangely calm. The cancellation fee was almost 30% of the cost, but I didn't care. Then I methodically canceled our hotel reservations. Some of them were non-refundable, but I canceled them anyway. Tours, special tickets, transfers, everything went down the drain. With each click of the mouse, I felt my resentment turn into something cold and determined. When I was done, there was only one tab open on my screen, a booking for a new single room in a Tokyo hotel, but for different dates, a month after their canceled trip. I deserved to see Japan. I'd just do it alone. When I got home, I couldn't sleep. I thought about the other ways I supported my ungrateful family, about the money I secretly invested in their comfort, about my parents' apartment, which I co-owned, even though I had made the initial down payment and paid most of the rent. I remembered how my father once called me too predictable, and how they often joked that I lived by an Excel spreadsheet. Well, maybe it was time to show them that boring, predictable Ethan could surprise them too. And if they thought that the message about me being excluded from my dream trip was the end of the story, they were sorely mistaken. It was only the beginning. The next morning, I woke up with a crystal clear head. The plan was ready, methodical like everything I do, but this time aimed not at helping my family, but at restoring justice. First, I called my friend Mark, who worked for a property management company. I explained the situation, and he agreed to help. An hour later, a locksmith was changing the locks on my parents' apartment, and I stood by as the legal co-owner, signing the authorization. "Don't you want to talk to them first?" asked Mark, watching the locksmith work. "They didn't want to talk to me when they kicked me off the trip I organized and paid for," I replied. "Now it's my turn not to talk." The next step was a visit to the bank. I closed the joint account from which I automatically paid part of my parents' rent and canceled all regular payments. I didn't close Kevin's credit card. I just turned off the automatic payment from my account. Let him deal with the debt when it comes due. Then I called the insurance company and made changes to my health insurance. My parents were no longer my dependents. The representative on the phone expressed sympathy when I briefly explained the situation. Apparently, family dramas were commonplace for them. "They will receive a notice of termination of insurance coverage in 30 days, the girl said. "We recommend that they find an alternative as soon as possible." "Thanks, I'm sure they'll figure something out," I replied with cold politeness. The last step was the most creative. I called the owner of Joe's Cafe, where my parents and Kevin went almost every Sunday. Joe was a longtime friend of our family, I paid for their Sunday brunches with a card I had left him just in case. They thought they were just getting a family discount. "Ethan, man, long time no see." Joe greeted me cheerfully. "Hi, Joe. Listen, I need to get my card back, and I'm not going to pay my family's bills anymore." There was an awkward pause. Did something happen? Yeah, they decided I wasn't fun enough for them. Joe frowned but nodded. "Your card is your business, but you know your parents will be a little surprised?" "That's what I'm counting on, Joe. That's what I'm counting on." By evening, everything was ready. I sat at home waiting for the first messages or calls. Strangely, I felt neither anger nor triumph, only a calm confidence that I had done the right thing. The first call came around 10 p.m. Kevin. I didn't answer. A minute later, a text message arrived. "What the hell is going on? The airline says my reservations have been canceled. Are you aware of this?" I didn't answer. Then my mom called. Then my dad. Then Kevin again. I turned off the sound on my phone and calmly continued watching a documentary about Tokyo, taking notes for my future trip. In the morning, I woke up to a knock on the door. Sharp, insistent. I knew who it was. I slowly got up, pulled on a t-shirt and jeans, and took a sip of water. The knocking grew louder. When I opened the door, I saw my whole family. My mom looked tearful, my dad angry, Kevin confused. Behind him stood Amber, the girl who turned out to be more fun than me. "What have you done?" my father growled, pushing his way into the apartment. "Do you realize we spent 3 hours at the airport yesterday trying to figure out where our tickets were? And then we couldn't get into the house for another 2 hours because you changed the locks," my mother added in a trembling voice. "We had to spend the night in a hotel." I looked at them calmly, crossing my arms over my chest. "You're confused. I'm not going to Japan, remember? Amber is taking my place. She's more fun." Amber shifted awkwardly from foot to foot, clearly regretting being caught in the middle of a family drama. "But you couldn't just cancel the trip," Kevin exclaimed. "It's a gift from Dad." "Yes, a gift from me. And you decided that I wasn't worthy of it, so there's no gift anymore." Mom came closer, trying to take my hand. "Honey, we didn't mean to hurt you. We thought you'd be bored with us." I took a step back. "Don't. You knew exactly what you were doing. Now live with the consequences." "What do the locks have to do with it?" my father asked. "Why the hell did you change the locks on our apartment?" "Our apartment," I corrected him. "I'm the co-owner, remember? And I have every right to change the locks. By the way, about the apartment, there is no program for elderly tenants. For the last 5 years, I've been paying 40% of your rent." My father's face changed. Disbelief, then shock, then fear. "What are you talking about?" "Kevin," I turned to my brother, "your credit card with a $3,000 limit is not a bank bonus. I've been paying it off all these years. Now the payments have stopped." Kevin turned pale. "And your health insurance," I continued, turning to my parents, "is not a government program. It's corporate insurance through my company. It will be canceled in 30 days. A dead silence hung in the room. They looked at me as if they were seeing me for the first time. Maybe they were. "Why didn't you ever tell us?" my mom asked quietly. "Why should I? So you could treat me like an ATM in front of me instead of behind my back?" I smiled bitterly. "Anyway, now you know. And one more thing. Next Sunday, bring cash to Joe's Cafe. Your family discount is no longer valid." "How dare you?" my father exploded. "After everything we've done for you." Something inside me snapped. Years of silent acceptance, suppressed resentment, and unspoken pain all came pouring out. "What exactly have you done for me, Dad? Called me a boring accountant? Preferred my brother, who can't hold down a job for more than 3 months? Or maybe you kicked me off a trip I paid for myself?" My father backed away, unable to find the words. My mother started crying. Kevin looked like he'd been punched in the gut. "Go away," I said quietly but firmly. "All of you. I need to get ready for work." "Ethan, we can talk about this," my mother began. "No, it's too late. You made your choice, I made mine. You can get the keys to the apartment from the building manager. I left an envelope for you." They left one by one. Kevin was the last to go, pausing in the doorway. "I didn't know you paid for my card," he said quietly. I really didn't. Now you do, I replied, closing the door. At that moment, I felt not satisfaction, but a strange emptiness. It was as if an important part of me had left my life along with them, but it was too late for regrets. The plan for revenge was set in motion, and I couldn't stop it. And I didn't want to. The next 2 weeks were a real test for me. It's hard to break family ties, even if they cause pain. I often woke up in the middle of the night thinking, what have I done? But then, I remembered my mother's indifferent message, and my determination returned. On the 3rd day after our confrontation, my father called me. Ethan, we need to talk like adults. His voice sounded unusually soft. Your mother and I understand that we hurt you, and we sincerely regret it. I listened silently to his awkward apologies, which gradually turned into what I had expected, manipulation. You understand that we're in a difficult situation right now. The rent bill came in, and we can't pay it in full. And Kevin got a call from the bank about his credit card. I'm not paying your bills anymore, I interrupted him. You're adults. Deal with it yourselves. There was a pause. Then my father changed tactics. Son, you can't just change the locks on our apartment. We consulted a lawyer, and he says it's illegal. There it was. I almost smiled. Predictable. I consulted with 3 lawyers before changing the locks, I replied calmly. As a co-owner, I have every right to do so, especially considering that I made the initial down payment and still pay most of the rent. But let's not play legal games, Dad. Do you want to take this conversation to a lawyer? I'm ready. He fell silent. I knew my father hated lawyers and litigation. Besides, I wasn't bluffing. I had checked my rights before taking action. We just want things to go back to the way they were, he finally said wearily. Things won't go back to the way they were, I replied and hung up. That evening, Kevin texted me. His message was long and rambling. He wrote that he didn't understand how much I supported the family financially, that Mom and Dad weren't involved in the details of planning the trip, and that the idea to take Amber instead of me had originally come from her, and my parents had just agreed. He ended the message with an offer to meet and talk like brothers. I agreed to meet him. Not because I hoped for reconciliation, but because I wanted to hear his side of the story in person. We met at a small cafe near my work. Kevin looked exhausted, worn-out sneakers, a wrinkled t-shirt, dark circles under his eyes. He didn't look like someone who was about to leave for Japan in a week. I broke up with Amber, he said instead of a greeting. It turns out she knew you were paying for the trip, and she insisted on taking your place anyway. I nodded, feeling neither satisfaction nor sympathy. I'm sorry to hear that. Me too, Kevin sighed. Listen, about the credit card, I really didn't know you were paying for it. I thought it was some kind of program your bank offered or something. I would never... It's not about the money, Kevin, I interrupted. It's about how you all treated me. For years, I was the boring older brother you could use but not respect. Do you really think I didn't see you and Dad exchanging glances and smirking when I talked about work? Or how Mom always calls you first with any news? Kevin lowered his eyes. I didn't think it bothered you. You always seemed so self-sufficient. Because I had to be. Someone had to pay the bills while you were finding yourself. My words came out harsher than I intended, but I didn't apologize. I'd kept it inside for too long. What can I do? Kevin asked. How can I fix this? Nothing. I shook my head. Just live your life, and I'll live mine. No more loans, no more hard feelings. Kevin looked as if I had hit him. Are you seriously breaking off relations with your entire family? Because of one trip? Not because of the trip. I looked him straight in the eye. Because of the relationship. The trip was just the last straw. The next day, my mother called me. Her voice was shaking. Ethan, the bank sent a notice about a late payment. We can't pay the full rent. They're threatening to evict us. You should talk to Dad and your lawyer about this, I replied dryly. But we've always paid less. We can't suddenly find that kind of money. You didn't pay less, Mom. I paid more. There's a difference. You can't just abandon us, her voice hardened. We're your family. Families don't kick someone off a trip they paid for because of some random girl, I retorted. And they don't lie about their financial situation for years. You lied to us, she exclaimed. All these years you pretended to help out from time to time, but you were secretly paying for everything. Why? So you could use it against us later? I took a deep breath. I did it because I loved you and wanted to help. But you took it for granted, without even knowing the whole picture. And now, instead of gratitude, you're accusing me of stopping giving you money? We could lose the house, Ethan. I didn't ask you to live beyond your means. My voice sounded colder than I expected. Find a cheaper apartment or an additional source of income, or ask Kevin for help. A week after our first confrontation, I received a letter from my parents' lawyer with a settlement offer. They would drop their claims of violation of their rights as tenants if I agreed to continue paying part of their rent for 3 months so they could adjust to their new financial reality. After consulting with my lawyer, I agreed to provide 1 month of support equal to 30% of their rent, but on the condition that they sign a document acknowledging that I had fulfilled all financial and moral obligations to them and that they had no right to further claims. The parents, driven into a corner by financial difficulties, signed the document. I transferred the money to their account that same day, feeling a strange mixture of relief and bitterness. Part of me still wanted to resolve everything amicably, but another part knew that was impossible. During this time, I continued to prepare for my trip to Japan. I ordered guidebooks, bought comfortable shoes for long walks, and even signed up for a basic Japanese language course. These preparations became a kind of therapy for me, a way to focus on the future rather than the painful present. One evening, while reviewing the itinerary for my upcoming trip, I received a strange message from my father. He sent me a link to an article about Japanese rock gardens and wrote, "You always wanted to see this." I was puzzled. My father had never shown any interest in my hobbies before, and suddenly, a message like that as if nothing had happened. I didn't reply, but I saved the link. The next day, my mother called. "Your father and I have been thinking. Maybe we could go to Japan together after all. Later, after you've booked your ticket. We'll pay for the tickets ourselves. It would be a wonderful way to rebuild our relationship." I almost laughed at the absurdity of the suggestion. "No, Mom, I'm going alone." "But your father dreamed of seeing Japan," she said, her voice tinged with manipulation. "You know it was his dream." "I know, and I gave him that opportunity. You chose Kevin's girlfriend over him." After that conversation, I decided to change my phone number, not to cut ties completely, but to control when and how I communicated with my family. Freed from constant messages and calls, I felt a strange sense of relief. It was as if I had gotten rid of a heavy backpack that I had been carrying for years. For the first time in a long time, I could focus only on myself, my desires, and my plans. Tokyo greeted me with pouring rain. Leaving Narita Airport, I stood under a canopy watching the rain fall on the asphalt. In any other situation, I would have been upset. Who would want to start their dream vacation in such weather? But now I was smiling. I was free. For the first time in many years, I was truly free. At the hotel, I took a shower, changed my clothes, and despite the rain, went out to explore the neighborhood. Tokyo in the rain was surprisingly beautiful. The neon lights reflected in the puddles, creating a surreal scene. I went into a small restaurant and ordered ramen. Sitting at the counter, I watched the chefs working with amazing precision and passion. These were people who were completely devoted to their work, people I could identify with. When I returned to the hotel, I found a message from Aunt Susan. "Kevin found out you're in Japan. Mom is crying. Dad is angry. They just called me trying to find out how to contact you. I said I didn't know. I hope you're having a good time. Hugs." I felt a twinge of guilt, but quickly dismissed it. I didn't have to apologize for living my life. If my parents were crying, it was the result of their own actions, not mine. The next few days were filled with new experiences. I visited Sensoji Temple, the Ginza shopping district, and the famous fish market. I took photos but didn't post them on social media. I didn't want my family to be able to track my movements. On the third day, I met Ayako, a girl who worked as a guide at Meiji Shrine. We got talking after the tour, and she offered to show me the real Tokyo that tourists don't see. We spent the evening wandering through narrow streets, popping into tiny bars where locals sang karaoke, and eating at family restaurants where the menu was only in Japanese. Are you traveling alone? Ayako asked over dinner. That's unusual for Americans. I had originally planned a family trip, I replied, surprised at my own candor. But circumstances changed. Ayako nodded understandingly. Sometimes it's better to travel alone. You see more when there are no distractions. I couldn't help but agree. If I had come with my family, we would have stuck to the strict itinerary I had planned. I would have worried about everyone being comfortable and my father being happy. Instead, I felt free to explore, change plans, and follow my impulses. After Tokyo, I went to Kyoto, a city that struck me with its tranquil beauty and harmony. Walking through the bamboo grove of Arashiyama, I felt a sense of inner peace for the first time in a long time. I sat down on a bench, closed my eyes, and just listened to the bamboo rustling in the wind. At that moment, I knew I was making the right choice in setting boundaries with my family. I deserved this peace, this freedom from manipulation and guilt. That evening, I received an email from Kevin. It was titled, "Please read." With a heavy sigh, I opened it. "Ethan, I know you changed your number and don't want to talk. I respect that. But I need you to know that my parents sold the apartment. The price was low because they had to sell quickly, but they paid off their debts. Now they're renting a small apartment in the suburbs. Mom got a job at a supermarket. Dad is working as a driver in the evenings. They've changed a lot, Ethan. What you did made them rethink a lot of things. I've changed, too. I got a steady job and I'm not asking them for money anymore. Instead, I help them out when I can. I know that a simple "I'm sorry" won't fix things, but I want you to know that we all regret what happened and miss you. I hope you're having a good time in Japan, and I hope that someday we can be a family again. Kevin. I reread the letter several times, feeling mixed emotions. On the one hand, I was glad that they had started living within their means and taking responsibility. On the other hand, I couldn't shake the feeling that this letter was another attempt at manipulation, only more subtle. I decided not to respond for the time being, giving myself time to think about the situation. Instead, I continued my trip, heading to Nara, where deer roam freely through the streets and parks. Watching these graceful animals, I thought about freedom, new beginnings, and how easily people can change when they are backed into a corner. The next day, I woke up with a strange feeling. I was due to return home in a week, and I was troubled by the question, what next? Continue to ignore my family, give them another chance, or find some middle ground? I called Aunt Susan, the only person in my family I still trusted. "They really have changed," she confirmed. "Your father has stopped complaining about life and has taken on a part-time job. Your mother is a different person now, more modest, more grateful. Even Kevin has matured over the past few weeks. But Ethan, that doesn't mean you have to forget everything and forgive them. That's your decision and yours alone." Her words gave me food for thought. Perhaps sometimes people need to lose something valuable to understand its true worth. 2 days before my departure, I stood on the observation deck of Mount Fuji, looking out at the endless expanse. The beauty of nature and the majesty of the mountain made me think about the pettiness of human grievances and conflicts. At the same time, I understood that my feelings were legitimate and my boundaries were necessary. On my last evening in Tokyo, I decided to wander the streets of Shibuya. Passing by a family restaurant, I saw a family through the window. Parents and 2 adult sons. They were laughing, sharing food, and talking with obvious pleasure. This scene evoked a strange mixture of envy and sadness in me. Despite all the disappointments, I missed the idea of family, the feeling of belonging. Back at the hotel, I wrote a reply to Kevin. "I got your letter. Glad to hear you're all back on your feet. I'm not ready to go back to the way things were, but I'm willing to start the slow process of rebuilding trust. No financial support, no manipulation, no exploitation, just as equal adults who happen to be related. I'll be there in 2 days. Maybe we could meet a week after I get back. Just you and me. Let's see where it goes. Ethan." As I pressed send, I wasn't sure if it was the right decision, but I knew one thing. I would no longer sacrifice my happiness and dignity for their comfort. If we did rebuild our relationship, it would be built on a new foundation, mutual respect, honesty, and healthy boundaries. At Narita Airport, waiting for my return flight, I looked through the photos from my trip. Among the pictures of temples, gardens, and cityscapes were several selfies of me smiling. a sincere, relaxed smile that hadn't appeared on my face in a very long time. Japan gave me not only new experiences, but also a new version of myself, more confident, more whole, more authentic. And I was going to keep this version regardless of how my relationship with my family turned out in the future. Back in the US, I spent the first week diving back into work and getting my life back in order. I deliberately put off meeting Kevin, giving myself time to get used to the idea of reconnecting with my family. My coworkers noticed the change in me right away. Sarah from accounting said I looked 5 years younger. Mike, my boss, noted my relaxed confidence and offered me several major clients, a task I had previously shied away from due to my fear of public speaking. "Sure, I can do it," I replied, surprising myself. Finally, 10 days after returning, I wrote to Kevin, suggesting we meet at a neutral location, a small cafe near my work. We agreed on Saturday. Kevin arrived 15 minutes early, unheard of for someone who was always late. He looked more put together than I remembered. A neat haircut, an ironed shirt instead of his usual wrinkled t-shirt. But the main change was in his eyes. They looked clearer, more confident. "You look good," I said after an awkward greeting. "You too," he nodded. "Japan has done you good." We ordered coffee and talked for a few minutes about my trip, the temples, the food, the people. Then the conversation inevitably turned to more difficult topics. "Mom and Dad really want to see you," Kevin said, looking down at his cup. "But they're afraid you'll push them away." "And why do you think I would do that?" I asked, trying not to sound too harsh. Kevin sighed. "Yes, there is. And now I understand. We all understand." He looked up. "Ethan, what we did, excluding you from a trip that you organized and paid for, it was terrible. I don't know how we could have been so thoughtless." His sincerity surprised me. I had expected excuses, attempts to share the blame or minimize what had happened. "When you cut off your financial support," Kevin continued, "we were all shocked, not just because of the money, but because of how much you actually did for us, and how little we gave you in return." I remained silent, giving him a chance to speak. Selling the apartment was a difficult decision for my parents, but in the end, it was the best thing that had happened to them in a long time. They started living within their means, working, taking responsibility. My father says he feels useful for the first time in decades. "And you?" I asked. "What has changed for you?" Kevin smiled faintly. "I got a permanent job at an IT company, entry-level technical support. Nothing spectacular, but it's a steady income. I stopped jumping from place to place. And I started to appreciate what I have instead of dreaming about the impossible." We talked for almost 2 hours. Kevin told me how his parents had adapted to their new life, how they were angry at me at first, then at themselves, and finally came to accept it. How his father admitted for the first time that he had always envied my organization and reliability, but didn't know how to express it except through jokes. By the end of the conversation, I knew I was ready to take the next step. "I can meet them," I said, "but not at their place, and just a short meeting at first." We agreed to have lunch the following weekend at a restaurant halfway between my house and their new apartment. When I saw my parents, I was struck by how much they had changed. My father looked slimmer and more energetic, my mother more modest, without her usual expensive accessories. They both seemed uncertain, almost timid, which was so unlike them. "Ethan," my mother began immediately in tears, "we're so sorry." I raised my hand to stop the flood of emotions. "Let's just eat first and talk about simple things. Work, the weather, anything. Let's see if we can even talk to each other." And surprisingly, we could. We talked about my trip, their new apartment, my father's job as a driver. No reproaches, no manipulation, no requests for money. Just a conversation, like normal adults. When it was time to say goodbye, my mother asked quietly, "Will we see each other again?" "Yes," I replied, "but let's take it slow." 6 months had passed since I received that fateful message about being excluded from the trip. A lot had changed during that time. I started socializing more with my colleagues and began dating a girl whom Sarah from accounting had introduced me to. I got a promotion at work, thanks to my newfound confidence in dealing with clients. Our family relationship gradually recovered, but on a new basis. We started meeting every 2 weeks for dinner, taking turns choosing restaurants. Everyone paid for themselves, an unspoken rule that everyone followed without question. My mother no longer called me asking for money. My father stopped calling me a boring accountant and even started taking an interest in my work. Kevin seemed to have really grown up. He was working steadily, planning to take evening programming classes, and had even started saving money. On my 32nd birthday, they invited me to dinner at a nice restaurant. After dessert, my father took out a small box. "This is for you from all of us," he said. Inside was an elegant silver bookmark in the shape of Mount Fuji and a card. The card read, "Thank you for giving us a chance to be better. With love, your family." I was touched, but I was even more touched by the fact that the gift was modest, thoughtful, and without any hidden meaning. It wasn't an expensive watch that would create an obligation. It wasn't a cliché card with money inside. It was just a symbolic gift that showed they knew and respected my interests. A year after the trip to Japan didn't happen, we were sitting in the living room of my new apartment. Me, my parents, Kevin, and Lisa, the girl I had been dating for 6 months. "I have a proposal," I said when we finished dinner. "I'm thinking about a trip to Spain next summer." Everyone fell silent, looking at me uncertainly. "I'd like you to come with me," I continued. "But there are conditions. Everyone pays for themselves, everyone participates in the planning, and everyone is responsible for their own happiness during the trip." My father was the first to break the silence. "I'd like to go." On those terms. "If you really want to see us there." "I do," I replied. And for the first time in a long time, it was the absolute truth. That night, after everyone had left, I stood at the window looking at the city lights. I thought about everything that had happened that year, about the pain of betrayal, about the bitterness of realizing the true nature of our relationship, about the freedom I had gained by breaking toxic ties, about the slow, difficult process of rebuilding on a new foundation. Was our family perfect now? No, but it was honest. And to me, that meant more than all the money in the world. I will never thank my parents for that painful message about being excluded from the trip. But deep down, I am grateful to fate for that harsh lesson. It taught me the value of boundaries, self-respect, and genuine relationships. By losing my family, I finally found myself. And, paradoxically, that was the only way I could get my family back, this time the real one.